This reading is from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda. These are parallel commentaries on the on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. This week's reading is entitled The Law of Karma, Bondage or Soul Release. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. The epistle of St. John to the Galatians, which means a letter that St. John wrote to a group of people, contains this oft-quoted statement, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap," means whatever a man plants, he shall also harvest. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramhansa Yogananda tells a story from the life of the Benares saint Trilanga Swami. A skeptic once determined to expose Trilanga as a charlatan. A large bucket of calcium lime mixture used in whitewashing walls was placed before the Swami. "Master," the materialist said in mock reverence, "I have brought you some clabbered milk. Please drink it." Trilanga unhesitatingly drained to the last drop the container full of burning lime. In a few minutes the evildoer fell to the ground in agony. "Help, Swami, help!" he cried. "I am on fire! Forgive my wicked test!" The great yogi broke his habitual silence. "Scoffer," he said, "you did not realize when you offered me poison that my life is one with your own. Except for my knowledge that God is present in my stomach, as in every atom of creation, the lime would have killed me. Now that you know the divine meaning of boomerang, never play tricks on anyone." Again. The well-purged sinner, healed by Trilanga's words, slunk feebly away. Yogananda goes on to say, the reversal of pain was not due to any volition of the master, but came about through unerring application of the law of justice, which upholds creation's farthest swinging orb. Men of God realization like Trilanga allow the divine law to operate instantaneously. They have banished forever all thwarting cross-currents of ego. Not by reason alone, but by self-realization are the ins and outs of destiny fully understood. Their web, though tied forever to the post of ego motivation, is too intricate to be perceived as a single thread. Only great masters can see it with clarity. It is visible to them in all its workings, not from within the tangle, but from above in superconsciousness. As Sri Krishna said in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, "He who beholds inaction in action, and action in inaction, is wise among men. He is one with the Spirit. He has attained the true goal of action, perfect freedom." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
You know, Master's writings, Swamiji's writings, in this case with Rays of the One Light, I wanted to reread the paragraph where he says, not by reason alone, but by self-realization are the ins and outs of destiny fully understood. Their web, though tied forever to the post of ego motivation, is too intricate to be perceived as a single thread. Only great masters can see it with clarity. It is visible to them in all its workings, not from within the tangle. I'm sorry. Not from within the tangle, but from above in superconsciousness. So that is such a perfect way to put it. Our our karma is too intricate to be perceived as a single thread. It describes karma so beautifully because karma happens. We don't know why things happen because we're not self-realized yet. That's the only reason why we don't know. And we could perceive it if we were one with the divine. And certainly the higher our consciousness is, the better we will be able to perceive these kinds of things. But that's where we get that sense of injustice. Because we think, what did I do? I didn't do anything to deserve this, but we just don't know what we did in past lives. And God has decided through our vrittis in our chakras that it's time for a certain karma to manifest on this plane. And, we don't necessarily have a choice about that. And it seems unjust. And yet, the whole point of the law of karma and reincarnation is that it's the law of God. There's a law going on here. And Master said it's not just, it's our ignorance that allows us to break that law and create karma. And even that Bhagavad Gita quote is referring to when we are in our center acting, we're, much less likely to create some bad karma happening there. It's when we are off center in our actions that we set off a karma that has to come back and push us back into our center to help us to be corrected. And we must be corrected. That's the law. But it doesn't feel good all the time. And I wanted to read something, though, from Master, which is so uplifting. And, sometimes we just need to be able to step back a little bit from our karma. We need to go into observer mode, where we can just kind of step back and say, how could all these terrible things be happening right now? And be in the divine. Before I read this, I wanted to just tell a short story of Swamiji that Jyotishji tells. He said they were building these domes on the property. This would probably be in the late 60s or early 70s. And it wasn't working out very well, and they built one, and apparently it collapsed somehow. I'm not sure the full details. But, for everyone involved, it was quite frustrating. And Swamiji went off on his own and was sitting, looking out. And after a while, Jyotishji thought, well, maybe I should go over and console him because, this was quite a disappointment. And so as he got closer, he could hear Swamiji in bliss saying, too much joy, too much joy. So this is a person who has stepped back from his engagement in the world in a very positive way. Even though this catastrophe happened, he had pulled himself into the spine and was communing with the divine during that time. Now, was he ignoring the problem or not facing things? No. That's the first thing we need to do when something terrible happens. Withdraw into the spine. Just withdraw. And contemplate with Master. Contemplate with the divine. Say, what's trying to happen here? Please help me, guide me. But not only that, our most creative actions, our most creative problem solving comes from our ability to go inward and receive that guidance from the divine. And if we can create that habit, that every time something difficult happens, rather than immediately reach out, of course, emergencies happen and we have to respond. But in many cases, we have a little bit of time to go in and touch God first and ask for that guidance first and fill ourselves up with the bliss of God to give us the strength to go through whatever we have to go through. You know, there's many stories in history of people who have just gone through terrible times. People who had to be in concentration camps in Germany during the time of Hitler comes to mind. And there's stories of people who had miraculous lives in the prisons, who somehow became a beacon of light for others through beatings, through terrible behavior towards them. And yet they were able to become a beacon of light, not become bitter, and to get closer to the divine. Now, of course, when everything is stripped away, what else do you have? But it would be very easy to just become helpless, hopeless, and give up. But instead, they chose to live in inner strength and to live in a divine way and give strength to others around them. They knew somehow that if they serve others in this terrible situation, that they too themselves were helped, that it made them saints. And many, many stories of people like that. When we were in Palo Alto, there was a woman who, I won't go into the details of her torture, but she would go around to schools of children and tell her story. And so they came to the Ananda school in Palo Alto, and she told her story, and you feel terrible grief at what she had to go through, and yet you see this brilliantly lighted up person, filled with light, filled with strength, filled with experience. It's one thing to say, I trust God, God's going to do everything for me, and God will protect me. It's another thing to go through really difficult times. It's like being forged in fire. You go through the really difficult times, and then if you can still say, I trust in God, God protects me, then you know it's the truth. It has to be tested, and as disciples, we are tested. We're tested all the time. Every opportunity to react to a situation is a test. And every opportunity to react in a positive way towards the light, towards higher energy, that's when we really succeed. That's when we really shine in life. And Kriya yogis really have that opportunity to have inner skills that get us through the difficult times. Having Kriya meditation, having even our other meditation techniques, our Kriya bonds were just going deeper into the Om technique recently. These types of tools that we have on the path bring us closer and closer to the divine. And we learn how to bring Master in very closely to us to guide us. And the more we want to hear what he has to say, the more he's going to guide us and tell us things. And what we want to ask most of is, help me love God more. And so I'm going to read this wonderful talk by Master. You know, the way he spoke was so free. Same with Swamiji. So free, so heartfelt, so full of humor, despite talking about serious topics. Humor is a wonderful way to open people's hearts. And he just had this natural brilliance about him that, I'm not saying silly humor, in what he did, but just the way he would phrase things, that kind of stuff, in these talks at least, just open your heart and allow you to receive the message. That's one of the benefits of humor, is it helps us relax and go, oh, life isn't as serious and horrible as we think it is. So let's hear a little bit of Master's words. Laugh at delusion. Watch it, and it cannot work on you anymore. Be in that bliss. Stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds, and you shall find that God is real. He doesn't mean to hurt you. He has made you in his image. He has made you already what he is. That's what you don't realize, because you acknowledge that you are a human being. That's why you climb back to God. Deny your errors, and what is in the past doesn't belong to you anymore. Why talk of karma and karma? I'm so tired of people talking about karma. Americans talking about karma. India fell politically because of too much believing in karma. I remember a student in Seattle, they used to have a cranberry patch, both a husband and a wife. Every year they used to lose thousands of dollars, and they came to consult me. You are with God. I said a little talk about it. I said, the answer lies in you. Why did you allow yourself to suffer such losses? And they said, is there any other means to destroy by freezing? I said, yes, think. The answer is going to come. What about strewing some chemicals? I said, yes, hire an airplane and throw this dust of chemicals, something which he knew. Well, next year he made $25,000 for the first time. Every year he made many thousands after. The thing is, as there is a common saying amongst people, fate is supreme, and it must take its course as the cow follows the calf. Neither education nor power is of any consequence. Now, that's a stupid statement. I am the child of God. He is plain. He is not sinful. I one day said to the Lord, and I asked his pardon, I said, Lord, you are the greatest sinner, and you are the greatest virtuous one, because I see the beam creates the villain and the virtuous. And God laughed, and I said, how can I be your child if I have karma good or bad? He laughed. He liked it. He wanted me to be one with him. Then I would have all the fun to watch the fun in the world. But I cannot reconcile this thought that there are many, Lord, millions who do not know that this world is only a drama. What about them? He doesn't answer. I know the answer, but I don't like it, because so many who do not know that this is a delusion. And when you are suffering from cancer, it is no fun. But when you sleep, you forget the cancer. If you are one with God, you will forget all the terrible troubles. I know some saints had terrible cancer, but those saints never prayed for their cancer. Look at St. Francis. He had ophthalmia, all kinds of diseases, and at the same time he was healing the dead. His joy of God could not be taken away. So before any trial of disease comes, it is very troublesome before you have realized God. So by all means, get to him, and he won't let you there unless you have proved to him that you want him and do not want to get mixed up in his show. As long as you want to reform the world and do something tremendous, it's wonderful. Yes, you should. But as long as you think that you are the doer, you will be bound, and you won't let out. First, find him. While all the time do some good and awaken people and smile all the time with his joy. Then you shall know this world, though terrible, is only a place of cosmic motion picture, and the motion picture has to be different in order to be entertaining. We couldn't have only angels walking on this earth. Then nobody would be interested in this world. They would always yawn at each other. But there's so many bad people that when we have, but when some, I'm sorry, but there's so many bad people that when some become good, it's wonderful. When you have lots of sorrow, then when you have a little happiness, you appreciate. But we don't have to go through all these terrible troubles. I said, Lord, you never experimented with this drama of sorrow and pleasure on yourself. So, I said, why do you experiment on us? He has given me the thought to think. So I think all these things every day. It doesn't create any distrust because he is with me. He smiles at me. He tells me why it is so. But unless you become him, you cannot understand the whole business. Don't question God. You will only reap doubt. If you are reading a novel and you get very much frustrated and angry, oh, how this hero is being mistreated, how this villain is winning, and you see all these chapters contradicting each other, well, you will not like to read this novel. But when you read the last chapter, you will see how wonderful that novel is because it's so complex. This creation is wonderful. It's very complex. That's why. And the writer is God. And don't try to get the answer yourself. You will be lost. When you find him, he will in the last chapter give you an answer for everything you want to know. And you won't be able to question him when you hear his answers. That I know. So it's just such a wonderful reading. It lifts us out of our own self-pity when we have the support of Master and Swamiji in this way. So it doesn't mean when we're going through hard times, don't take it seriously and things like that. But really, we have to learn to first go to the divine, first seek guidance inwardly, and then be able to have creative solutions for what's going on. Swamiji once said that karma is like weather. And I'm not sure if I can get this analogy right, but I'll try. If karma is the weather of life, then, we are who we are. We're children of God, and this weather is going around. Master said in this writing that what's happened in the past is in the past. We don't have to identify with it. When bad things happen, we don't think bad things only happen to bad people, therefore I must be bad. It happened. We don't know why. But it's our job to continue to identify as a child of God and as someone moving towards self-realization, no matter what happens around us. And what happens usually is we end up saying, why did this have to happen? And especially, why did this have to happen to me? But when we're having weather, we understand the law of God through Mother Nature. It's raining. What are we going to do? It's raining. We can say, I don't want it to rain. I don't want it to rain. Why does it have to rain? And just live in discomfort and disgruntlement because we hate the rain. Why not accept the rain? Okay, the rain has come. What can I do? I'll wear my big long boots. I will use my umbrella. I have tools to deal with the rain. Well, same for karma. When karma comes, we have our Kriya Yoga tools and any other tools we might have around to deal with our physical surroundings. But I remember when I was a little child, I grew up in Iowa for about 9 years during my elementary and junior high years. And Iowa's a very, very cold place. It was at least very cold when I lived there. I had heard, maybe 20 years ago that the time we lived in Iowa was one of the worst cold spells during that time. And I don't know how many years. But we would have snow from September, mid-September, not early September, into May. And you would think that the snow would start melting and then suddenly there'd be a snowstorm in May. And so we had snow 7 to 8 months out of the year. you know, for those who are living in a cold climate, we learn to adapt. I remember as children, it wasn't fun to be cold and have your nose freezing and have your fingers cold, and you had to be really careful about wrapping a scarf around your face and having the warmest mittens you could have. Our closet at home was filled with coats and a box of mittens and scarves and anything that could keep you warm, and boots, because there were 4 girls. And so when one girl outgrew what she had, well, then the next girl would end up wearing all the outdoor equipment if it was fashionable enough. And when you're in elementary school, you really don't necessarily know these things. But if you're going out in the snow, you care about being warm. So I remember not particularly loving snow, and yet we made the best of it. We sledded, we went down snowy hills all the time. We ice skated. We lived in a cold environment. We adapted to a cold environment. I remember having to walk a lot in deep snow, home from friends, going from a friend's house to home, walking to school, and just trudging through the snow. And it's very tiring to do that, but you end up going into a state of just being in the moment with it, one step at a time. And the snow is very silent and quiet. And you really get into this mode of not, why do I have to walk in this horrible snow? Why? Not that. Instead, a very silent place. Of course, I didn't have a strong spiritual background back then, but I remember this time of silence. And I remember feeling joy during that time. In fact, I remember walking home from a friend's house just after a blizzard. And so the snow was really high. And but the streets had been scraped and plowed. That's called snow plow. But the streets had been cleared, and so cars were still going. But I remember being in this mode, going through the snow, just one foot in front of the other, but kind of just feeling really happy in the moment. And someone rolled down their window as they were speeding by and said, "I like your smile." And I didn't even realize I was smiling in this snow. Now, I love to ski, all those kind of things, fine. But when just for a little context, when my mother said, we're moving back to Washington State, which is Seattle, the first thing I said is there snow? And she said, not really. And I said, let's go. So I guess I don't remember not liking snow that much, but it wasn't my favorite. But you learn to deal with it. You can't fight against snow. This is the same for our karma. We can't fight against the karma. Now, with Kriya Yoga, we have the opportunity to practice it and to burn up those karmic seeds in our chakras that don't need to be manifested in the material plane. And so why not do it? Why not burn up as many seeds as possible and then deal with those things that do have to manifest? So we're given the tools to do this. And why not think of karma as just the weather that's happened? It's a lot less personal way to look at it. It's the weather right now. The other day we were dealing with a few deliveries, and every single delivery went wrong. and it just thought, and there was one more thing we thought about that we needed, and we thought, let's not do it today, because it seems like it's just not going our way today. So it was like the karma was kind of against that kind of a thing for that day. You can feel these things when things aren't really going your way, and take a step back and make decisions based on the feeling you're getting from things. there is mitigation of karma. Swamiji does write, I was just reading recently how when our aura is strong, when our magnetism is strong, it can mitigate some karma, make it less worse. We have these astrological bangles. Someone recently said to me, I don't believe in bangles, it's superstitious. You're just like trying to ward off evil. And I said, no, that's not at all what these astrological bangles are about. The astrological bangles' purpose is to increase our magnetism, to help increase the strength of the aura, which then can possibly protect a little bit from the planets. Our guru, our Param Guru, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, was the one who came up with the formula for these things. And so, why not take advantage of a little something that might be a bit protective? But it's not out of superstition or warding off evil, that kind of a thing. Get back, stay away. We don't do that. Anyway, let's take some time to feel the joy of Master, to feel the joy of Swamiji, and be ever grateful. America just experienced something called Thanksgiving. And so to any Americans, we wish you Thanksgiving. And to everyone else, we are just thankful and grateful to have you in our lives. And grateful for Swamiji and the way he lived his life and showed us all. Grateful for Master. So God bless you.